Hello everyone. In today's session, we will explore about SysOperations Framework, and this was, an improved framework after RunBase Batch framework, where we not usually need to input or invest our most of the energy in those tasks which were repetitive. So they implemented a framework where they have taken care, Microsoft has taken care about most of tasks which took our most of the time. So my name is Khurram Rashdi. I am MCT. So agenda will be what is SysOperation Framework, the introduction to the framework, and then we will move on to advantages using this framework, and also explore what are the main components and how we can implement or make use of this framework using a few of the examples we will show you briefly, and then we will compare also sys operation framework with respect to batch framework, what is difference between two, and then we'll move on to the demonstration. What is this framework? Basically, it is when you want to extend D365 functionality by adding a new functionality that may require batch processing. And by batch processing in D365 world, we mean when you assign some of the tasks to server, or you delegate some of the tasks. Instead of waiting for their tasks to complete, you need to assign their task to server, and then also you have the ability to schedule that task, and you have also ability to get alerts or warnings or errors for those tasks, whether it was successfully completed or there were certain warnings or certain issues. So that can also be received through emails or alerts on the system. So sys operation framework was lately in the previous version as well in of AX 2012. It was implemented by Microsoft in order to replace the RunBase batch framework, which was having certain limitations. And it also, the sys operation framework provides infrastructure for creating user interaction dialog boxes, where we need to implement methods previously in RunBase for implementing dialog boxes, and the fields, and then getting the values from those fields and setting the values to those fields. And also sys operation framework provides integration with batch server for batch processing, that I already explained, that when you assign a task to server instead of a client. In previous version, definitely a server was having 64-bit components, and client was having 32-bit components. So 64-bit means more processing power, and also when it is scheduled on off-peak time, so definitely the performance will increase, and it will not disturb the production work to go on. So the advantages are normally summarized below, that it make use of services available, and then sys operation frameworks also is based upon MVC pattern, which is a very well defined pattern, model view controller, and the communication between client server is more efficient. UI automatically is generated on data contracts. Data contract, the class we have already used in SSRS video training, that is used for parameter passing, filters passing, or also less extra effort is being used to expose the service externally. And finally, it is a way to build service-oriented application in D365. So this is a new paradigm. Main components include the controller class. Controller class, the guys who are familiar with SSRS controller, the same one is here. It basically is used to control user interface and instantiation of the processing class. And in SSRS controller was used to to select based upon dynamic values or parameters the correct design. So in data contract is also needed as a second component here. So that class is used having attributes or properties required by the processing class. And there is a basic processing class which does the actual work, like in SSRS DP class was doing actual work. So in SysOperation, the processing class is doing actual work. So additionally, we can also have a UI builder class here, which in our demonstration we will make use of that class as well. And in applications, what are the applications basically where we can use SysOperation framework? It is used when you have to update in bulk multiple bulk of records in a process. For example, when you need to denormalize certain data, multiple tables are having relationship and you want immediate values available, for example, for SSRS reports, or any of other use when you need to update in bulk all of the records in table, or you create another table and you want to denormalize the existing table into that table and then make use of that table for inquiry or reports. So that can also be one of the application. And similarly, a process which ran on a single record on a form, and now you need to update all of the records behind that form by calling an existing code or process. So that can also be one of the application. Also, there is a usual application which normally end users are not aware of and they are not making use of when system is providing a batch functionality. So the sys operation is the same way. It provides you a functionality when you can delegate your task instead of waiting until it is finished. You can delegate it to the batch server itself using SysOperation framework, so that whenever you have scheduled it off peak time, so that will execute and alert you that now the task has been completed. And this is usually it means then when it is more than 1 minute task, or when you can foresee that number of records are too many, and you need to also don't want to wait for this and you want to do another task, so it's better to delegate this to SysOperation framework. So what is the difference between the two frameworks that is shown here? The basically SysOperation framework is implementation of MVC pattern. The isolation of parameters, that is the model, and then dialog is what is a view, and code that runs is a controller, basically is the essence of the pattern. In RunBase, what we needed to do, pack and pack method. If somebody who has already done the batch framework, they must be aware of pack and unpack. And whenever you implement, you need to add another global variable or another attribute, then you need to increment the version number there in order not to mess up with the previous cache. So pack and pack was your task to implement, but now it is taken care of by SysOperation framework. And then member variables, it is a component inside the model itself. And then in the view dialog, get from dialog, put to dialog, run base batch, we need to implement these methods and we need to override these methods. Now it is taken care of by SysOperation framework. And controller is simply an execution entry point, or run or prompt method are basically part of this one. So in this picture you can see it easily that there is a comparison of RunBase class with the SysOperation service. And you can see in SysOperation, in the model, data contract class is basically a part of this. And in RunBase class, basically class members, since it was only a single class normally in RunBase, so whatever the class members were, those were part of model. And so the model MVC in RunBase was implemented in a single class. Now in SysOperation it is multiple classes. So that's the only difference. And remaining is view. View was a dialog method, put to dialog, get from dialog. This was used to build up a dialog and then put certain value on a dialog. For example, for text fields we need to set up certain values and then get the whatever the value were input by the user and users, that were taken from this method get from dialog. We used to assign the values to the variables. And then in the controller class, in the SysOperation it is separate, but in RunBase it is the same run method implemented in the same class. So now let's move on to demonstration, and we'll see how we can implement a SysOperation framework by implementing one of the example in bank module. Let's see it. So moving on to the demonstration. In the demo, what we need to do is to create at least three classes. One will serve controller, and one will serve as a data contract, and one will be for processing in SysOperation framework. So to start with, we will create a new project. Just in file menu, go ahead with the new project, and then choose finance and operation template, and then give it a name like what we are targeting. Basically, on the bank account form there is a bank group, so we need to change that bank group through our SysOperation framework. So let me show you. So here the list page is showing bank account, and on third column it is bank groups. So once you open any of the record, so once you edit it, you can check here that multiple bank accounts are available, and it is allowing us to change it. So we can change this bank group. So through SysOperation framework, we need to change the bank group. So going ahead with this one, so give it a suitable name, like give it a prefix, and along with prefix, just give it a name like bank group change. Go ahead with creation of the project. So on the right hand side in the solution explorer, you can see a solution with the name which we have provided and the project. Go ahead and right click and add an element of type class. Give it a name, and this class we need to make first of all the contract class. And contract we have already seen in our SSRS reports training video. It is used for data, parameters and data transfer. So in this case also we will use to give it a name, just bank group change contract. So in line with our project name, we will name our classes almost the project name in the first, and then putting it like contract, controller, and so on. So just add it. So it is giving me a model error. Let me correct the model. First of all, we need to choose a model where we need to create our project. That's very important. So let me pkr bank group change contract class. We also need a label file in our this project. So also it is better to create a label file. Go ahead with the add, and then in the new item, just go to label and resources and label file. Also give it a name like bank group label file, or you can also name it like labels. Bank group labels is giving label file ID. Go ahead with this, and English language is okay. If you want any other language, this is up to you. If Arabic is chosen, then you can choose Arabic as well. Okay, then cancel the dialog, and the label file is created. Just open it so that side by side this window is available. remove the first label, it is not needed. And then now we can go to the class and give it a decorator that it is a data contract. Now in the class signature, just we need to extend this class with SysOperation data contract base, and also it should implement the interface of SysOperation validatable, because we will also implement a validate method. So just go ahead with the bank account ID as a EDT and a variable here. So bank ID, you can put this name and then bank account group ID. But this EDT, let me check. You can open the bank account table and there it will be available, and we can pick up the correct EDT. EDT is extended data type for the new developers. Bank group ID, and on the right hand side we can check from which EDT it is extending. So it is bank group ID. So we can put here bank group ID, and we'll name it in camel case. Camel case is initial word is small, and then the all words are capitalized. First letter is capitalized. This is called camel case. For variable, it is better to use it as a camel case as a best practice. And now we need to add the data members, which will be group bank group ID and bank ID. So we can just start here, data member, and give it a signature to the method. For this, the return type will be bank account ID. So return first access modifier, that is public, and then return type we have mentioned. Now we can mention the method name. So the method name will be bank ID. So in the bank ID, instead of bank ID, we can put it like param bank ID. And then we can declare the parameters. So we'll just copy paste. And since parameter variables should be starting with underscore as a best practice, and then we would also initialize to make it optional, because as a getter this method need to be without parameter called, and it will return the value of the variable declared in the class. So that's why we are making it optional. Also make it camel case. And now the passed parameter, if it is passed, so it will assign to the local variable. So that statement will go like this one, and then we will return the bank ID. So this is our one of the param, and similarly for bank group public and bank group ID, param bank group ID, and same way bank group ID underscore group ID, and here also group ID and underscore group ID. This will be assigned, and return type will be group ID. So this is our second param method, getter or setter. Normally the programmers know by getter and setter. So once we have wrote this one, now we need to implement our validate method. So for the validate method, we can write like public and return type boolean true or false. Validate. Okay, in validate we need to check whether the bank ID is blank or available. Bank ID must be available, so that's why we need to check it. If it is blank, then we will need to return like bank ID must be specified, return check fail, and here we will return the label ID which we'll create in our label file. Just leave it empty for now, and then write down another statement like if the now the bank ID is passed, so then we need to introduce else if. So in the else if means this else if will only occur after checking bank ID is not blank. So it means in the other condition when it is filled up it is passed. So at that time we need to check another condition, and what will be that one? Bank account table, and just call the find method, and find method instead of find, let me check which one would be better. Exist, yeah, this one, bank account ID. So basically we need to check the past bank ID is available or not. So if it is not available, so we can make it a not condition to reverse this. So that means when it is not existing in the record, in the table, bank account table, it is bank ID which is passed is not available. So then what should we show it? We will show like vehicle we will show here that bank account does not exist. So we need to also show the number, the ID which was passed. So %1 means first parameter that I will show you now. Return check failed. So check failed always returns string value when something is failed. So just give it a label, and now we need to pass here bank ID as a parameter. You can see the str format method, what it does. Basically whatever the string is, if we don't put a comma here, so it will show whatever string is there. But if we put a comma in bank account, then inside the string in the double quotes, if a %1 we have given %1, so it means our first parameter. Even we can separate another with another column by %2, and that we can put here. So I can show you one example here. For example, if I put like this one, so it means the first parameter after comma, it will be embedded here. So it will concatenate here, and bank account and number, whatever variable, it will show here and does not exist. The message will be shown. If I put like here uh, group ID, so then I can make it like in uh, uh, with %2 group ID. So it means like in %2 the group ID, the second parameter here, it will be embedded here. So I will just remove it. It is not needed, just for explanation I have put it. to give an example. So the bank should be capitalized and full stop. So I need to also put here whatever the message I need to give to the user, so that then I can create from label file. Bank ID must be specified full stop. Okay, and then now what if this is passed, means the bank account also bank ID is also has some value, and that value is available there. Now we need to check also whether vehicle group ID, sorry, now we need to also check that bank group ID, does that contain any value or not. So we need to just now put in another else if, and that will be like group ID is blank. So once it is blank, so just remove the empty line here. And in the last also we need to check whether the in the same way it exists in the table itself or it does not exist. So we need to also check the table for bank group ID. So what is the table? You can go to the bank account table, and in the relation you can find that there is a table with the bank with the name of bank group. So in the bank group there should be another exist condition through which we can check it. So we can just again use the similar statement of exist and pass a bank group ID here. That will be this variable. We will pass it here and it will true if it exists, but we want otherwise, means we want to catch the validation when it does not exist. So we will put a not here, and now all the statements should follow the same pattern, like check, return, check, fail. So it will return either true or false with a message. So just copy paste the same one here. Okay, and here strfmt, now we can put it here like bank group ID does must be specified. In the same manner we can also remove the comma here, and so if the bank group ID does not exist in the table, then we can show it that bank group ID %1 does not exist. So it does not exist where in the table itself, bank group table, bank group ID table. That is bank. What was the name? Bank group table. So now it is now otherwise what will say that okay, if all these conditions are failed, means all are true, means bank ID is there, it exists, bank group ID is there and it exists, then what? So it will go to the else, and we cannot write here else also, because now at this moment when we put a return here, so return means that it will return from the method itself. So instead we can also put directly here a return statement as true, means otherwise if nothing is no condition has passed, so ultimately it will reach at the bottom. Also otherwise we can also put like here we can put this return here. In this way, also it will reach at else and return true. So that's it. Let me save it and create the labels meanwhile. So it's giving me an error that okay, there is one bracket missing. Just put one bracket. We will just now copy paste and create a label in the label file. Just put this as a label here. So we will give a short name here. Just give it like bank ID mandatory. Okay, and same way bank ID does not exist. Make it a small one. Bank group mandatory. Bank group does not exist. Now just copy this one ID and then put in the first string just like this one, and in the same manner just put others replacing the original text. Also put here a full stop. We need to just check by building the package here. Now we are done with the contract class, and now we will implement our actual process class, which will actually change the bank group. So we need to just create a new item of type class and just give it a name like PKR bank group change. Just go ahead with creation. We need to again declare the global variable of the same type which we created in the contract. So just go to the contract and copy the same variable and place in our actual process class. And once you have put it, then we need to implement one init from contract method. Just make it protected. For the new developers, it's very important to see that there are three access modifier type: public, private, and protected. What is the difference? Private can only be used within that class, but protected can be used in the child classes as well, if you know the inheritance concept. And public can be called from other classes as well, which are not related with that. So normally param methods, those are declared as public. So but here we need to make it a protected so that child classes can also use. So now we need to make it like init from contract, and here we need to pass our contract object. So the name of class is PKR bank this contract and underscore contract. So now we need to from the pass contract we can call the param method, and through that param method, for example, the param bank account ID, that need to be assigned to our bank ID here. This is basically initialization using our contract. So then in the group ID, same manner we can use bank group ID as a getter here, because the value is retrieved from the parent method and it is assigned to the global variable in our class. Same for the bank group ID. So next what we need to do is create another method which is also protected, and kind void means nothing is returned, so no return type is there. Just make it like update bank group. So what we need to do here, we need to declare a bank account table buffer and bank account table, and then we need to call the table a static method. A static method is which is not instantiated when class is not instantiated, so that is a static method. But here the table also have the static method. So in this case we will call our find method, and we need to pass the bank account ID which is already set in bank ID global variable. So we will just pass the global variable, and the second is for update, means if I pass false means we cannot update this table buffer, but I want to make it up to update, so that's why I just put true, because we need here to update the group ID. And now I need to check whether the bank account table holds the record. So it can be possible when the record is not there, so the rec ID will be 0. So that condition need to be checked. So rec ID is greater than 0 means there is certain record. So just make a validation that it is greater than 0 means there is a record, and now we need to update bank account table, and in the bank account table bank group ID need to be assigned. So if you for the new developers, equals to and there is a double equals to. Double equals to is for comparison, but for assignment it is only a single equals to sign. So just put here a group ID which is our variable already, and whenever you type certain variable it is highlighted at that very moment in the Visual Studio interface. So just once you have assigned, then you need to also fire the update method, so that basically the commit has occurred. Now what we need to do, also we need to also implement, it's better to implement a validate method also. So that's why public boolean validate and make it return true, so that this is used for future purpose. Right now I am just making it true, so that validation has passed. And now what we need to do is we need to implement our run method. So we will just start with public void run, and in the run method again we need to pass our the contract class object. So that's why I just need to pass it here. So once it's passed, we now need to check in if condition that our or contract which is passed is validate is true. If it is not true, then it can return. Now you can see that there is nothing written here. means though there is no variable or value I am returning, just I pass return because the return type is void, means nothing can be returned, just I need to return the control here. So once the validation for contract is passed, then only it will go to else. Instead of else, I will just put here like initialize from contract. So just pass on the contract object, and then I need to also call the validate of this class itself. So that both validate first of all contract, and then contract is initialized by calling our own method, assigning the values through the getter setter to the global variable, or param method to the global variable. And then I'm also asking for validate from this class, which is now right now true, but later on if we need any condition we will implement. And once this validate is done, then very important step here, if you have noted, previous developers as well can note that whenever there is an update, it should be enclosed within the transaction. Transaction means TTS begin and commit, or TTS the rollback. So in this we have not implemented. Why? Because whenever we call the method itself, at that very moment we will call that. It is your option, it is your choice wherever you want, but I will include it in outside. When the call to the method happens, at that very moment I will start with TTS begin and TTS commit. So means if anything failed, so whole transaction will be rolled back. So that is the very purpose of TTS begin and commit. And normally it happens whenever you update or delete a record. For the new programmers, I would mention this. So now I would call our update bank group, and there is no parameter, and then there is no return type. So I can just simply call by calling this, and this for new programmers is very important. This means this object, whenever this class is instantiated, at that very moment an instance or an object is created. So I am referring to that instance on object, and that behavior is update bank group. The behavior of that object will call this method, and whatever inside that method, which is basically group ID, is assigned and updated. So that is being called here. Now we need to just save this, and I need to just show you both of the classes once again. That is the contract and the process class. Just let me build it. Build is complete, so just go ahead with the contract class. And what we have done here, basically the SysOperation data contract base we have extended, and also interface which we are implementing is for validate method, which is SysOperation validatable. And then we have declared two global variable, and we have implemented param methods, which are basically getter setter, uh, to get the values from our variable or to set the values to these variables. And we have decorated these methods like data member. So then there is a method validate for validating our inputs. Basically inputs are bank ID and group ID. We need to validate those whether values are existing, and values are records are also existing in the table. So these things we have implemented in our contract. So what about our process class? In the process class we have again the global variable, and in that we have implemented initialize from contract method, which is basically taking up the contract object, contract class object, and initializing, getting the variables from via param methods, assigning to the local means global variable to this class. And then basically inside the run statement all the control goes on, from validating the past contract, it's validated is okay, then it will go to initialize from that contract. Once it's done, then it will call its own validate method, and once it's done, then it will directly go to update the bank group change. So that's it. So far we have done this, and now we will go ahead with our controller class. So SysOperation basically implement MVC, that is model view controller, and that is all implemented in separate classes, unlike then our RunBase batch, which all together mix up everything in one class. So now we'll create another class, and the name here will be bank group change controller. Just go ahead to create it, and we will extend this one with the use the extends keyword. And for new programmers, it is basically inheritance concept. When you extend a child class with the parent class, means when you need its behavior and variables or attributes. So the same way we need to extend this controller using SysOperation service controller class, which has now become parent class. You can see as soon as we extend it, there are so many methods from that parent class which now shown as allowed to override those methods. So the guys who have already worked with the run-based batch framework, they must be knowing this dialog method, and there is a dialog run method, and there are so many methods which now SysOperation has combined together. I mean, SysOperation is giving us as a framework, and we can use it. Internally it is handling everything, so we don't have to worry about these things. And pack unpack must also be known to the guys. Pack unpack are nothing but serialization of the variables when it is passed from a client end to the server end. So the variables, the values are packed from the client side to, and then unpacked on the server side. So every time we use to increase the version to maintain the packets for the next version. Now it is all internally handled in SysOperation framework. So these are all method to be overridden. So what we need to now do is, we are not now overriding any method. We will just create a method. So that will be public static, and static means no need of instantiation of the class itself. And we will call it main, and args will be passed. Args object will be passed, which can hold multiple things like record, table ID, everything. So I would explain a little bit. Public is access modifier, means external class can also, which is not related with this class, can also make use of this method. And static means this method can be called without instantiation of this class. And void means the return type is no variable, nothing, only a return type. A return statement will suffice. And then args is a class and object which is being passed here. So we use this args when we need to pass a record or something, then only we can use this. So now what we need to do here, the class, this class, the object of this class we need to declare, because now this method does not know that where it exists, so in which class it exists. So that's why the same class need to be instantiated, because this is a static method. That's why, because it does not exist inside an instance, that's why we need to declare the class itself, and it just behave like an normal external method. So now we need to also initialize the controller here. We can also initialize the controller in the same statement, like go ahead and constructor, which is new, and already it has input our class automatically, and then we need to uh, in the controller we need to pass our class string for the business process class, and then the run method, and then in the synchronous mode we have to use it. So there are three parameters. So identifier name, that is class name, and method name, and the execution model of sys operation we need to implement here. So just give our class str like bank group change. This was our only change was our class. Here it is. So the bank group change is the only class name, and the method name was, I can go to the next line and multiple tabs, and then the method str need to be in the method str. I need to give also the class name as a parameter, and the second parameter will be the method name. Now I need to also give it the mode, sys operation execution mode, which is an enum value, and here I need to declare it as a synchronous. Synchronous is just like an interactive mode when a dialog is created and a user is waiting, end user is waiting. So that is meant by this synchronous, and then the instance will be initialized. So once it's initialized, I need to call the dialog caption method basically here, and in the dialog caption what I need to give it a good caption like bank group change. Okay, and I need to also create a label for this. Just let me complete. So the start operation will be final statement, and just let me rather put it as a process, bank group change process. So this will be label. Just let me create the label. Just remove the spaces in the label ID, and just copy from here and paste here. So now the label is there. So just save it to check if there is any syntax error or something. Validation is completed, and just close the other windows, and now try to build it. If there is no compilation error, then we can go ahead with the creation of an action menu item, which will call our the controller, and then add that action menu item to our periodic tasks. If you know that there are three kind of menu items, one is display, one is action, and one is output. Normally output are used for SSRS reports, display are used for user interface elements like forms, and action menu items are used for actionable classes. So we will create a menu item now. Go ahead with the new item creation, go to the user interface, And here in action menu item, we can name it like bank group change. Bank group change will be our menu item. So what we'll name this menu item, there is help text and there is a label. So in the label, we can go ahead with the bank group change, bank group change. And also we can create a label ID for help text. So we can put like change HT for help text. And we can use the label first of all, label ID here, and then help text also we can put in our help text property of the action menu item. And now the important part is label and help text. After this, we need to also change our object type to the class here. And you can also check here that SSRS report and query and other things are also available, but it is always a better thing that for action menu item class can be used. And then now in the object, all the classes will be available. Here we can search like bank group change controller. So that will be the our class. Object type will be bank group change controller, and object type will be the class here. And now what we need to do is we need to go to the menu, just save this. On the left hand side, the inside user interface elements, you can see menus there, and in the menus you can find a bank module menu. Access admin menu. Cash and bank management is available here, and you can create an extension. So the extension is now created, and give it the name like our after dot you can put name as per our project name. Okay, then you can just double click it and it will open, and you can find a periodic task here. In the periodic task, you can if you want, you can create a folder here, and if you want to place it at the bottom, you can do the same. Just drag and drop on periodic task, and it will automatically create it at the bottom. And the inherit, it will automatically inherit our the menu item name and action type and all the names, it will automatically pick it up. Let's save it, and now let's build it. Let me explain a bit about what we have done here. So basically, when we run this sys operation, there are three elements we have created. There is one controller class which handles the execution, and then there is a contract class to pass our values, and then there is actual changes happening to the existing record, that is bank group change. And there are now three elements. So it is basically model view controller. So that's very simple MVC model, and build is now completed, and we can go ahead, and it's better to relaunch our browser to check our changes. So now in the interface, we can go to our cache and bank management module, and in the periodic task, you can see here bank group change is available. So just click it. So now you can see that in the interface, you can see multiple things here, which is basically bank group ID, and automatically it has formed into lookup. And then there is a account identification here, which we also need to provide, but basically it is not a lookup here, and run in the background. Those are normally batch processing options are also available, and that these options are when you want to run this task as similar to batch, RunBase batch operations, when you want to run it in a background task, not as a interactive task. So that those options are available, but we have now chosen the synchronous mode, and basically bank group is lookup, but bank ID is not shown here. So now what we need to do is just cancel it, go ahead with any of as an example, we can choose any of the bank IDs. For example, we will pick this Great Britain, and go ahead with bank group change, and just place this in account identification, and then we need to, just for example, because we will put it in a Bank of Europe. So just select the bank groups as Bank of Europe, and USMF as existing bank ID, which is for Great Britain. So just press OK, and let us check what has it done. And in order to check that, just go to the bank account. Now you can see here our record has been updated to reflect the correct bank group which we have changed. Actually previously it was empty, and now we will check our validations, whether those are working or not. So go ahead to the bank group change again, and just don't put this one, and only place bank group ID. And you must see that the previous values are now retaining as per usage data of per user. It is stored by Dynamics 365 automatically, and you can then remove that one, and just go ahead with OK. and now it is showing our error message like bank ID must be specified. So, just specify a bank ID, and now just remove the bank group, and now press OK. Now it's showing bank group ID must be specified. So I will again choose the bank group ID. Now I will just little bit change, like putting a two character which is not existing, and check another validation. It is showing bank account, this one does not exist. Now it has checked in its table that it does not exist. So, and but in the bank group we cannot input any different value, although I have put here now by typing it. Yeah, and the fourth condition, bank group ID does not exist, is shown now. So it means our all validations are working, which we have implemented in our contract class. And in this way, the sys operation framework can be used for multiple purposes, and those are very useful, and you must have seen now during the implementation of these classes that we don't need any dialog methods to implement pack and unpack method, and from dialog we need to retrieve our values like we have done in a previous RunBase batch framework, which was very difficult to implement. But here we are only targeting which we need actually, and it has reduced our work a lot, and it has helped a lot in implementing the sys operation framework. So now let's explore one more thing, and that thing will be like the same menu item I need to place in the form itself. So how we need to do that, and so we need to just go ahead with our main method again, and that main method we have in the controller. Yeah, this main method we have implemented, and what we need to do here is just declare bank account table, in and then also I need to populate this table. For that, what I need to do is also I need to do another change here, like switch. I will use the switch statement. Basically it works similar to if else. If for the new programmers, I must tell, it is basically switch case similar to if else. If so from the args which are being passed, I need to check whether on the basis of data set that is passed record. If case is like, it can be called from multiple places, so that's why I need to make it in this fashion. Later on, if it is called from some other uh, place where the table is a bit different, then that can also be handled here. So your method should be so flexible that it would adjust as per scenarios. Automatically indentation has been done, and now in the controller nothing is being changed here. So just now we need to just check after dialog caption, we need to check whether the bank account table buffer is having a record. Something has been written, there something has been passed correctly. If it is not passed, so that need to be checked here. We need to just declare our contract here, and for that the declaration, I would always suggest that it would go in the initial place. Contract, just correct the indentation here. and in the now in the if, we can here just pass our assign our contract using our controllers. Let me save it. Oh, basically I have done a little bit here. Just cut it, paste it here. So IntelliSense, which is the normally lookup of the methods whenever you put a dot, does not appear when there is a syntax error. So we take care of these things. In the controller, now we need to get the get data contract object, this one, and then give it the name which is basically passed. Let me save and reopen so that we can see the parameters. Just put a contract here, and now we need to just ensure that our validation is successful. So we will just check whether the contract is initialized in order to validate this. So now we can throw an error, and using our existing sys label, this basically sys label shows that function was called with an illegal value. This is pre-existing in sys layer. We will make use of the same label here, and we'll just pass a class str, that is the controller class here, bank group change controller. Now we need to just pass the values to our contract class. So the just pass on our local values, bank group ID and contract value bank. Now this why it is being done here, because now this class will be called, or the object will be called through menu item, and that menu item will be placed in the form itself. So when it is placed in the form, we will pass the current record of that form, current record of the bank account form, so that the value is passed on. So bank account ID, what was the name here? So the name is account ID, simple account ID. Now after the operation has been successful, the control will be returned back. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to call a form data util class static method is, and that static method will be is form data source, where we need to pass our table buffer, and now the statement which we are going to write here, basically first statement, if make sure that the form from where it is called contains this data source, bank account table, and definitely bank account form will contain that data source. So it need to make it need to ensure before calling, before rereading and refreshing the data source through research method. So just go ahead and do a get from data source. Basically, this is just to refresh the current records from the tables once we have committed the change of bank group. So then we need to also refresh the values in the form and need to display the same value, and our cursor should retain the the position. For that we just need to call this method form data util get from data source, and there we need to pass our bank table buffer and then research, and in the parameter you can see it is for retain position. So I will pass true so that the cursor retains the position and focus is not changed. Now we need to add this just build it and add this menu item to our form. Build is completed. Just go ahead with our first of all, let me check where we need to place this one. Just go ahead and go to our list page. So we are here now, and we need to identify which one will be the best place here. So reconcile, manage, setup. I think the setup will be the best place here, and if we go and open the form, so here we also can place, but it's better to place it in the list page in the setup tab. So we will just open the bank account table. We will just create an extension here. So again we need to create another as per project. Just right click and create an extension. The extension will be there, and just rename as per project, bank group change. So in the action pane, these are actually the top groups, the tabs which are we have just seen. So tab setup is the best place, and in the tab setup what we can do, and these are basically button groups which are already created, but we will use existing tab, and in that tab we will just create a new button group and give it a name like bank change group, bank group change. So in the bank group change, there is a caption here, and the caption we can place from our label file. So that will be bank group change. You can just copy paste and place in the caption. So once we have put this one, we can drag and drop our action menu item in that group. So once we have placed it, then now we need to set certain properties here. Multi-select is should be no, because this our method, our existing functionality which we have implemented works for a single record. So when multiple records are selected, so automatically the menu item or command is disabled itself, is grayed out. So apart from this, we need to also check the data source property that need to be passed, and that is the bank account table. So that will pass a record of currently selected record. So there is another property called needs the record. So definitely we will need a record. We will turn it to yes, and then there is one more property called save record, and it is by default it is set to yes, and it is needed in order to avoid any potential concurrency error. And now we have set 4 properties: data source, needs record, save record, and multi-select. And so now we are done with this one, and At this stage, we need to also check how it appears and how it works before we do any other change. Actually, we need to do one more change, but before that, we need to test our functionality. Just close the existing browser and we need to relaunch it because now every time a build has happened, so something has been changed at the back end. So that's why it's always better to relaunch our browser. Even though in the existing browser, if you go, it will again reload because the session has already been destroyed. Now just go ahead to the bank module, open the bank account this page. Now you can see on the list page, bank group change is available. You can just click it. So it is still showing our previous values. So we don't want this behavior, and we want every time the value need to be provided so that a saved value is not used. So also we don't want this bank account ID here to take from the user input. Instead, whatever the record already is selected, that need to be picked up automatically, and it should not be allowed to edit it. So only the bank group change need to be changed here. So just cancel this one, and now we need to implement the required change. The things on the form level we have already implemented. So we will just go ahead and change our existing contract as well. So we will go ahead with our contract class. In the contract class, we have implemented two param methods. So the one param method which is of param bank account ID, we need to make it hidden, and that is a problem here. You know, the every time a decorator is wiped out in the Visual Studio. Just let me type at bottom. So data member and sys operation control visibility. I need to make it false in order to hide this parameter. Now I will place the decorator now at the top of method signature. Apart from this, I need to also place our before the group ID, I need to place certain more values about label and help text. So what I will need to do is again in the data member sys operation label literal str. So here I need to put a label new bank group ID. Just give it a name new bank group ID and use the same label here. Okay. Also place another bracket here. Sys operation help text. In the same way, you can copy it till here and place it here. And then order of the parameter, how it appears in on the dialog. That need to be on the first level, and the help text we need to also create the help text. The new bank group ID which need to be placed or existing for the selected record, selected bank account. Okay, so this help text also we need to place here in the help text. Now this is I'm just placing here because of my ID error, and if you are also facing, you can also do the same until Microsoft fix this error problem in Visual Studio. Then you need to place this decorator at the top of the method. So just correct the indentation. Now it's better, should be in line, and now we need to add an interface after changing the little bit on contract class. When we have hidden our parameter, we need to just create our user interface using the SysOperation framework. So, and we need now to customize our interface. So what we need to do is we will create a UI builder class, and now this one is a fourth class here. So just add and give it a name like bank group change UI builder. Okay, and so the UI builder is now created. We need to extend it. Extends SysOperation automatic. Spelling is wrong. Operation. Operation. Operation and automatic UI builder. This will be our parent class, which we need to extend here, and then we need two dialog fields, and that need to be declared. Now if you remember our RunBase badge, there we already were using in the similar fashion dialog fields, and here we will create a bank ID field type, and then dialog field for bank group ID. These are user interface element like a field which will be there, and now we need to bind our contract data member methods to our dialog field. For that we need to use a post build, or we can override directly like this one, and then we can declare our contract here. Not builds, the dialog executes. Dialog. Give it some documentation, and then you need to just declare our contract here, give it a name. So super will be followed after this, and then contract need to be assigned with the pass data contract object. So after this, now we need to bind our field, that is bank account ID field. This dot bind info, get dialog field. Now there is a contract and identifier name, that is a field name here. So the contract which we have just passed and initialized, we need to pass this contract, and then identifier name is a field name. So what will be the field name here? That will be the method str, and then the contract class name here, and then the field name will be Khurram bank ID. That is a class name and the method name. Just save it. If there is any error, it will show. So far there is no. Also we need to bind the other one. That will be the bank group ID field. Just copy paste here, and in the same manner you can just copy the statement and change as per the requirements. That is now it will be changed like Khurram bank group ID. Just let me check once more. Khurram bank group ID, yes. So now we have binded our fields with our contract class methods. Now we need to handle our dialog field events, and just let me reopen it. So it's easy. Now you can check here the post build method, how it is now implemented, and now we need to implement the validate method here, and public boolean validate bank group ID, and here we need to pass our string control. So the string control of dialog will be passed into this method, where we need to we intend to validate that the value contained in that field. So we need to just declare our contract one more time, and that will be local to this method, and then in the contract basically in the same line we can initialize this. No need of another line, just initialize equals to with the constructor of new type, and that's it. Terminate the statement, and now pass into this contract the bank ID, and the bank ID will be the bank ID field here. And when you call with the dot, the value of that text box, the value inputted in that text box will be called by dot value method. It will return the whatever the value was input in that field text. So once it's done, then same for group ID. So bank group ID field dot value will be passed as a param to the contract, and then we need to also return our contract validate method. So basically we are again implementing our contract validate. but we are just creating a validate in order to pass the values. That's why we have implemented here, but internally we are calling our contract validate here. Now we need to also hook our dialog fields event in the post build method. So in the post build method we can go in there, and after we have binded our the dialog field with the variables. Now we need to also override the method. So which method we need to override? First, the bank group ID field, because only that field is available to show, and you can call IntelliSense and call register override method in order to override any built-in method in those four field string controls which we have declared at the top. So now in the override method, just call the method which need to be overridden, and calling through method str by providing the class, and in the class we need to pass the method name. So this method we need to override, and with which method we need to override, that we need to provide. That can be method str, and here we need to give our UI builder class name, group change UI builder, and here we have implemented the validate bank group ID. This method need to be provided here. Now the object which need to be overridden, that we can place it by this keyword which will refer to the current object. Just correct the indentation here. So now almost we are done, and so that now the problem is, now the controller method, controller main method, which is called when you click the menu item inside the form, that is called, and so that only knows that there is a bank account record from where it is being called. So the UI builder does not have that information. So we need to build a mechanism to tell UI builder so whether to hide or not hide the field which is bank ID. So that mechanism need to be also developed here. So we have attached UI builder to data contract. So we will add a hidden field to our data contract. So that's why we just will switch to the contract method, contract class, and here we need to just first at the global level we need to declare a no yes ID, which is an ADT, and that we need to also give it like show bank ID. Show bank ID is now declared here in the global variable. So the by default the value will be false, and but we need to again add a member data member method in order to handle this or to set the values here. For that, what we need to do is declare a method. Let me first check. Just save it and open. there is a validate method param bank group ID. So after this we can just add a decorator data member attribute and then sys operation control visibility attribute, make it false, and now declare the method which is public OES ID and make it like show bank account ID, make it no yes, show bank ID, show bank ID. Just correct the indentation here and assign this to show bank ID, return show bank ID. So this is how the method is implemented, and it will be hidden because the sys operation control visibility attribute is turned to false, and this parameter is optional, so similar to the param methods. And we can also make it like a param method instead of just whatever getter setter should be in param methods. So the prefix of param should, I have added it, and now this method will be used to communicate whether the bank ID should be visible or not visible on the UI builder class. So now we need to just save it and just go to our UI builder here, and in the post build method, which let me reopen, post build method here, we need to add a code, a small code at the end. So what we say that if contract is already there, if in the contract param show bank ID, no yes, no means it need to be hidden, not to show. So when it is no, then we need to make our bank ID field as visible false. So when bank ID show is no, then it will be false. Now we need to now ensure in our controller class when it is called from a record and when it is not called from a record, so that accordingly we can hide or show our field here. So for that what we need to do is go back to our controller, and in the controller let me check. So what we can see here that in the controller when bank account table rec ID is greater than 0 means when the record has been found. So when record has been found, then we need to hide that hide the field value. So for that what we need to do also, here you can place contract param show bank ID. It can be passed as No, because now we need to hide it. Ultimately, the bank ID is being passed from existing record. So otherwise, what we need to do is we can make it as a what we can put an else here and place our the other condition in the else. When we need to show it, so the other condition will go ahead in the else. We can have put it outside, but it is not better because every time otherwise that will be called and it is not intended. When it is already set, no need to make another call to the method. So in order to save that call, we need to make an efficient code and put an else condition here. So apart from this, so now that's it, and let's check our code now and just save it. Now just we need to go back to our form once again and open the bank account form. And now if you this record is selected now, and go to the bank group change here, the menu item, you can see that now the bank ID is now hidden here, so it is not shown here. And we can again test it and just change to it to another group, that is bank USA, and just press OK, and yeah, and this record has successfully been updated to bank USA. And now the same I need to do it to revert back using periodic. Go to the periodic and call the bank group change, and this time, and it is saying that menu item with the could not be open object reference. That's so there is some error here. Now we need to check what is the error. Now what we have done is basically if you open our contract here, so there should be one more thing in our contract class, that the decorator need to be changed in order for this contract to know that there is an UI builder also. And for that, what we need to do is just place a comma, and with comma you can just write down SysOperation contract processing, and then you need to provide our UI builder class name, change UI builder, just save it. So basically in our contract we have already hided the param method, so that's why it was not showing. But our UI builder has not been linked to our contract. That was the basic problem. Let me build it again. Meanwhile, let me close the browser. Build is complete. Let me open the browser one more time. After changing and connecting our UI builder to contract, let's open it once more. Go to the periodic menu item first. Still is showing some error, and the controller at line number 35. Basically, let me open the controller, line number 35. So there is a problem in our controller class. Basically we have already declared an in else condition. The contract, basically the contract is being initialized inside the if condition. So we need to adjust the code here so that in the both cases contract is available. So in order to do that, what we need to do is basically the here in our contract we need to initialize at this very level. So what we need to do is just copy this code at the variable declaration level and just remove this one, and so we can just uh, take it out from the existing if condition, just to be outside of this if condition. If a contract does not exist, it will throw an error, and this contract showing and when show bank account is a yes, when it need to be done, basically now we can place it here in else, and the other condition is in if condition. Now the problem of not getting the object of contract in else is now resolved. Why? Because we have placed it outside here when contract is declared and it is instantiated, assigned to this contract, and then the contract is checked whether it exists or does not exist. And even we can place it before, so that it even does not go beyond this level. So it's better to place it at the even not to put the caption in the dialog itself. So it's better to put error when the contract is not present at the very initial level. And now then the data set is checked and it is the record has been assigned and the dialog, the caption is assigned here, and visibility is set, and now it's okay. Just I need to build it, check it again by going to the cache and bank management and clicking bank group change menu item in periodics. Now you can see there is a new bank group ID, but the bank ID field itself is not shown, which is not the correct behavior. Just cancel it and go to the bank accounts list page, and here if you open it, so here it is saying that object reference not set to an instance of object. So the problem is again here also. Uh, we are facing an error here, object reference not set to an instance of an object. So there is some problem in our code, and also I would like you to see how to debug the code. So basically go to the Visual Studio, and in the Visual Studio you can go to the debug menu, and in the debug menu attach to process. So once you click it, so there will be this process W3WP for World Wide Web. So the filter is already applied here, and if you can see there are multiple processes running in Windows. So here we need to select this one, which is for World Wide Web, and then attach this, attach the process. So then Visual Studio will load all the symbols and everything related to this process, and once it's done, then you can again go through the same steps. Just go ahead and again click on the same menu item. So now the process has stuck here, so break when the exception type is thrown. So here there is an exception thrown already, but you can also insert breakpoint by F9 key, and then for example, if I'm here, then I can just press F9 and it will be breakpoint. And similarly, I can do without running the code, and wherever I want to put a breakpoint, that is up to me to inspect the variable values. So now let's see here, by just hovering over the mouse over the field, and here you can see I am setting it visible false, but actually the object of field is null, meaning it is not instantiated. So I can again check I can inspect other values as well, like bank group ID field is showing some value, means it is instantiated. So here you can see all the other values, but bank ID field is null, and contract is also instantiated, so there is no problem in contract. Rather, only bank ID field visible cannot be false because the object is null. So that is the key problem here, and in order to fix that, I need to again go back to the bank ID field in the contract itself, and then let's see, just stop the debugger and go to the contract class itself, where just double click the contract class, and here you can see that I have set the bank ID as visible false already. So because now conditionally we are setting the visibility, so that would not make any sense if I put the decorator here, like through SysOperation control I'm turning it false. So that I need to adjust. Just cut this value, paste here, and then remove the here the visibility. Just reopen, and I will put it here, only data member, and save it. So it should look like this one, like it will always show a value, and then of course we are setting it visible false, or so let me also check this one in the contract class. So that one is okay, and that has no problem. Uh, just build the project now. Meanwhile, just close this one. For the developers, it's very necessary to know your debugger, and I mean there are certain values which you need to check whenever you face some error, or your logic is not as per your expectations. So to master debugging is very important and very crucial. So let's go back to the bank account form list page, and just reopen our menu item once more. Now you can see it has successfully been launched without any error, so it means we have fixed the error. So just cancel this, and also check now from the periodic also we need to check this working, and you can see now the bank account ID field is now visible, and now we need to test also. So just let me go to the form first. So I need to turn it back to bank group of euro. So just click again, just select bank euro, and press OK. So now you can see the bank group has successfully been changed. And similarly, if I go to the bank group change and I need to also copy some of the value, for example, same value here, just copy this one and I will turn it to US bank. Yeah, and I need to turn it to bank US. Let's check now. So you can see the bank group is now turned back to bank USA from periodic tasks. So it means our functionality is working from both the ends. Now we need to add another functionality. So far we have been successful in implementing our required logic using either the menu item from the periodic directly or functionality from periodic. The menu item, that is the action menu item targeting the controller class, is now implemented either when a bank account record has been passed or it is from periodics. So there is one more improvement into our functionality. When you use a SysOperation framework, you can use a class called SysOperation Sandbox, and what it does, that it does not block your client process, so that any long running process which is more than 1 minute, you need to then utilize this operation sandbox in order not to block your client. So that we need to implement, and for that we need to use two static methods. One will initiate the process and one will act as a callback class that the framework will call to perform the desired action. So what we can do is just open our group change class, bank group change class, and in that class we need to add a new method. Let's go to the end. Just add a method here, private static void and process sandbox callback, and a container need to be passed here with params. Now just declare our these variables again here, and because this is static, so we can again declare it, because it does not have the visibility of class variables, variables, and this method will run without instance, definitely because of static nature. So then we will also need a container, and in that we need to just use these variables to assign the past container in this manner. So you can assign a multiple variables using the container. It means the container will contain the value. Sorry, the spelling was wrong. Container will contain the values in comma separated, and that will be assigned to these variables. Now go to the next line, and there you need to just instantiate your contract. So just declare the instance, instantiate the instance, then we need to pass to our instance via using the param method the values which are now through container we have assigned. Thus we have assigned these values. Now just you need to declare our the class which is the same bank change group change. Because this is a static, so we need to just declare this group change and new we need to instantiate. So the class is now instantiated, and then using this class we can pass the contract. So contract which we just have populated using param method, we have used the init from contract, and then group change run. We can pass the contract once again. So this method is now done, and another method we need to write here that will also be static. Process sandbox, and again the contract will be the parameter. Just put here underscore as a parameter. It is best practice. What we need to do is use the same variable, and we need to now, because now the contract is passed, so using that contract we can get the values for bank ID, and similarly bank group using the param methods as a getter setter. And then now the variables are already instantiated, so we need to now populate the container. So just declare a container of type params, and assign to this container the bank ID and the group ID. So in this way we can populate the container, and then we can call our SysOperation sandbox static method that is called call static method, and we need to just pass our the class ID using class num, and our this class, this class name, just copy paste and put here. So then we need to pass the static method, and that static method will be the previous one. So just call static method str, and then the class name. First let me paste the method name and the class name with a comma. So class name and the method name we need to pass, and then the container will be params which we just have populated, and then we need to just give a message which will be a waiting message, and that need to be passed here. And so in the vetting message, just open the label file. We can just copy paste the bank group change message and place this label ID here in the bank group change as a waiting message, and then we need to write another entry point. So just go to our controller. Now I need to write an entry point so the operation is run as asynchronous mode, which is not non-interactive, and we cannot use this process when the routine is running in batch. Means the sandbox logic is not being used when it is running in batch. This is only used when it is interactively called. For that purpose, we need to just implement another entry point, which will be public void run as operation, and then just declare our contract in parameters. So now if is running on batch, that condition need to be taken care here. Else, so when the process is running in batch, so then this will call our run method, and passed contract will be passed. Else, when it is not run in batch, then you can call the same class, static method, that is process sandbox, and in that static method you need to pass the parameter of contract. So that then the control will shift to this method which we just implemented. Just let me reopen so that all signatures are clearly visible. So the before the entry point was run, so it was for even batch. Just remove this. So now process sandbox callback and process sandbox. So we are just calling the process sandbox from where the other method, that is process sandbox callback, is being called. And in this way we have two branches, one when the process is running in batch, so our normal entry point of run will be called, otherwise it will be called via sandbox, and it will not hold our client process in a hanging state. So now what we can do is go to our controller class. Just let me reopen. So now in the controller we are calling our run method here, and so what we can do here, we can use run as operation instead of run method. So run as operation will have two branches, and it will check whether the process is running in batch or it is synchronous mode. Let us test it once more. Let's build the project, and so let's test one more time, and go to the bank management and the bank account form. So now again launch it and try to change the bank group. You can see this dialog box is now appearing, processing operation, and the cancel option is available. So now our required logic has been successfully implemented, and once again we need to change this by going back to our periodic, so that that functionality should also work perfectly. In order to just ensure, just change the bank group and click OK. Again you can see when called as a synchronous mode, it dialog box is appearing, and this is perfect. Just let me check once more the record, and here you can see the bank group has been changed. Now let's also check the same process through batch. So first of all, let me show you the current bank account statuses. We need to also make sure that our batch service is running. Just go to the services, and there you can see the batch management service is running in the services. So this is a prerequisite. And now you can see here the bank group is Bank USA, and you can also see USMF Euro is the bank account. I need to switch it to the again Euro, the bank group Euro. So let's do it. Go to the bank group change. So here I will just change it to Euro. But the only difference is now I will switch on the batch processing here, and the batch group change process is by default it is copied. So I just need to select any of the batch group which is assigned to a server. Just I will assign this empty batch group here. So in the empty batch group, if I want to make it private that nobody can see it, then I can also make it like this one. But that's it. And also recurrence, in this case it will be one time, and it will end after one recurrence, but there can be multiple recurrences when it does not end after one, or you can specify any number of time it runs, or you can mention no end date, means it will continuously be executing, and then days, hours, or weeks and months, and then how many weeks or whatever unit of time you have selected, it can execute. So for now I will use the same existing parameters and just press OK. And the batch group is empty, so it is not visible here. So after the change, it will go to the the bank group will change to bank Euro. So now it is saying that it has added to batch queue. Let me go to the system admin module, and in the system admin module you can see there is a batch job available here. So just need to go to the batch jobs, just put a filter here, contains bank. You can see it is the process has already ended, and if you want to see further status about this one, so you can go to the batch, and in the log you can see whatever the status is. Batch job history is also available. Log will show you the error. In batch job it's showing ended, so even you can see here any task. So in this task you can see it was executed, and the record is also provided. So just let me go back and check the required changes have been done or not. You can see here the record has been successfully updated, and bank group is now switched back to bank Euro. So it means our batch job has successfully executed. So this was an instant execution, but you can also select a time when it is a off-peak time. So that is a beauty of batch job, that it does not run during production time or when more of the user are having concurrent connections and they are working. So yeah, here in the start date and start time, you can select a date, and for example, the time in the midnight that can be selected here like this, and then it will be at midnight or whatever time you feel like it is a off peak time, off duty time. Then normally servers are available at that time, and less users are working, so that will be very easy using the batch job. So that is one of the benefits. These are alerts. If it is successful, then it will show you the alert. Means now our functionality using sys operation has been successfully implemented. And thank you very much, guys, for staying tuned. And also I appreciate the new subscribers, and please share the video so that everybody who is learning D365 or X++ or various frameworks, they should make use of these videos, because a demo is more, picture is worth 1000 words. So it's better, instead of written material or books or white paper or Microsoft Learn, when you see a video, it is more fascinating, amazing, and a practical example is given also. So I appreciate, already there are guys who are sharing the video. And if you have comments or any feedback or any new topic, just let me know in your comment.